Welcome back to the channel, guys. So, oh my God, we got a crazy one. So if you remember a while back, just a few months ago, we were reporting on a lot of the craziness with Nintendo, with these emulation websites being shut down or them moving their operations away or just completely ceasing to exist. And a lot of it stemmed from these two websites here, the LoveRoms and Love Retro website being dished a huge lawsuit from Nintendo, in excess of $100 million for all the little violations for every infringement that they found. Could have been up to $100 million, if not more. And that scared a lot of people. A lot of websites just shut their doors. A lot of people got a little worried and scared. A lot of things changed for people. Even during this time, Nintendo was going after YouTubers who were showing Switch hacking tutorials. We've reported on all this stuff. It was a very crazy time. But now, this lawsuit, it's actually pretty quick that this is done with, because typically these things get drawn out. But from this website, Torrent Freak, they're reporting on this. This is where I got the news from. They've actually settled. So the crazy thing, the owner of the website, Jacob Mathias, his wife actually got pulled into this as well. Hey, once you're married, you're as one, so you take that risk. You know, if your significant other's doing some crazy shit, you could be lumped in with them. So I don't know how much of her, she was involved with this, but she's on the hook for it as well. So instead of drawing this out and, being a long, battle in court, they agreed with Nintendo for a lot less, significant amount of money, but still nonetheless a huge amount of money. Who knows if they could pay this? $12 million is what they settled for, when originally, like I said, it could have been around $100 million for each infringement. So this website, they kind of, I guess they drew the attention from Nintendo because they were doing things a little different and weird compared to other websites that Nintendo really wasn't going so hard at. A big part of it could have been that they were based in the US as well, and it's just so much more easy to target people in the US if you're doing these kind of things. I remember there was a website, what was it? SunDevilDVD.com. They might have been out of the same state as these guys, but they were selling like bootleg anime movies on DVD. And those guys got sued into oblivion and whatnot. So if you're doing these kind of things, infringing on copyrights, trademarks, and whatnot, in the US, especially for profit, these guys had advertisements on their websites. They were making money from what they were doing. It wasn't just like a hobby thing where it was like, hey, just download some games, participate in their forums and whatnot. It was like, no, they were making money from what they were doing. But the other thing was they were using Nintendo properties, intellectual properties, to advertise the website. Their website was just bombarded with Nintendo imagery. So that's a big no-no as well. And that was a big thing that Nintendo didn't like, on top of them, distributing ROMs and all that kind of stuff. The other part of it was that you could actually play these games in the browser. Not too many websites do that. So you could load up Pokemon and just play it on your computer through these websites. I never used these websites. I never looked at them before. But definitely they were doing things a little more risky than other websites were. I mean, if you're a website and you're distributing ROMs, it's a little risky, especially in the US, but these guys were taking it to a few levels higher than that with those, infringements there. So luckily, they were able to just settle this. $12 million is a lot of freaking money. Who knows if they're going to be able to pay it, but if it would have went to a jury, if it would have, went through any kind of, where the judge or jury would have had to decided what the award would have been, it could have been higher, it could have been lower. More than likely, it probably would have been higher if you really think about it, for what Nintendo was pushing for. But maybe at the same time, Nintendo realized, like, there's no way we're going to get this kind of money out of them. But it would be nice to scare a bunch of people, which is essentially what they did with this. So settling for that $12 million, both of them, the wife and husband, they're on the hook for this. Typically, this is going to be a crazy thing. Nobody knows, even according to this article, if this couple actually has that kind of money. Hosting a website like that, which from what I understand was, a pretty popular website, but I don't really think they were drawing in that kind of money. They could have had assets of all sorts of other things. Who knows for sure? But $12 million, typically what would happen with this, from my understanding, and my experiences, I mean, I've not been sued for $12 million, but you can't pay it. They can go after your assets. They can go through, a lot of things. They can get a court order to go after your bank accounts, your home, all those kind of things. So these guys, their life could like really be ruined because of this. If Nintendo goes through the courts to do those kind of things, to go after their assets because they cannot pay, their lives are just wrecked. If they have the money, cool. Hopefully they can continue in their futures and not deal with this kind of thing anymore. I mean, part of the agreement is that they have to fork over everything Nintendo related, all the emulators, all the ROMs, anything they own that has that, they have to hand over, like this is. They further have to hand over all Nintendo games and emulators they have at their own expense. And on top of that, there's a permanent injunction that requires them to sign over the websites. So they no longer own those websites. Nintendo owns them. I don't think Nintendo will do anything with these websites, but handing those over, Nintendo owns them. They, obviously they're not going to be used for nefarious reasons anymore. As far as, if you want to look at what these guys were doing, were, nefarious or wrong, definitely illegal. And I know it's a very heated topic when it comes to ROMs and, gaming preservation. Most of you guys know where I stand with this stuff. Does Nintendo have the right to go after people? Sure. I mean, it's their properties. But Nintendo's just kind of balls deep on a lot of this stuff. Like they go after you, and they just, they ruin you in the end. There's no middle ground here. And it's really hard to convey my feelings necessarily on this, because I feel for these guys. Their lives could be ruined because of this, but they did take that risk. They had to know what they were doing was illegal, that being in the US, it's just so damn easy for a company to go after you if you're infringing on their copyrights and on their trademarks and on their intellectual properties. But yeah, I mean, I feel bad for them, but then at the same time, I don't. But I really hope the best for them. I mean, if this $12 million, definitely they could settle for less than that in the end. I mean, I'm not 100% if that kind of money could go to collections if they don't do any kind of asset, like, going after specific assets. You could protect certain assets that you have, but there's going to be so much that Nintendo could just take from them that will, really mess up their lives. So I'm hoping they got the money in the bank and can afford to just hand it over to Nintendo and, wipe their hands clean and be on with their lives. I mean, there's no appeals to this. That's the thing, is they both agreed to it. The plaintiff hereby is hereby awarded judgment against all defendants jointly and severely in the amount of $12,230,000. Each party shall bear its own costs and attorney fees. So I'm sure Nintendo's not too worried about their attorney fees, but these guys, they're going to be on the hook for a little bit of money there. So it was a joint motion between both of them that they agreed to this. So it's going to be very strange. This is going to set a precedent for a lot of these websites. I don't know too many of them who are in the US, but Nintendo's definitely put the fear in people when it comes to ROM distribution, for profit, that kind of thing. If you're hosting a website distributing ROMs using Mario's picture, Nintendo's logos, that's a very questionable thing. There's only going to be certain countries you could be in, certain internet providers that you could utilize that aren't going to have an issue with what you're doing. So I'm really, I'm curious, but I'm not curious. I don't really care because I don't want to host a website in the US to do this kind of thing. But I mean, did they have like some kind of offshore foreign account somewhere where their servers located elsewhere and they just ran it from the US? That's something that I'm not 100% on. So just a crazy day with these guys with this amount of money. You know, hopefully everything works out fine for him. Like I said, I feel bad for him, but at the same time, it was like, man, you knew what you were doing was pretty damn risky. So really do appreciate you guys stopping in, hanging out with me for a moment, you know, listening to me share my thoughts on this. It's just a crazy world, man. Let me know what you guys think. Smash that like button, slap the crap out of that notification bell. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. What you waiting for, man? And with that said, guys, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, bye-bye, and boom.